Let me go to Liberal MP Keith Wallahan, who joins us live from Melbourne. Thanks for joining us, Keith. I mean, this is not a representation of vibrant democracy. She's not got elected on this platform. In fact, she's been sworn into Parliament swearing allegiance to the Crown. So whatever she thinks about the current system, it's what pays her wages, and she's just being impolite, if nothing else, today, isn't she?
Well, that's right. I think hypocrisy doesn't mean anything to Lydia Thorpe. I think the moment she RSVP'd for this, I think the Parliament knew that there would be some sort of undergraduate stunt. At least she had the good sense to wait until the King had finished speaking before she unleashed her tirade. But it's embarrassing. It's a predictable play by her. It happens all the time. We know what she's like, and we sort of roll our eyes. But there's an important point to make. Wherever you are on the political spectrum, as far left as you want to be, as far right as you want to be, you can be polite. People can be polite and contest ideas.
Exactly, and it's a pretty sad state of affairs where you have security there to keep out any sort of protesters or people who are going to create a fuss, but it's actually a senator that does the damage. I want to get your thoughts very quickly on what the Treasurer has told us. He reckons, bad days are behind us. It's all going to be rosy in the future. Here's Jim Chalmers.
Well, I think when it comes to inflation specifically, the worst is behind us. If you think about the fight against inflation, the worst is behind us. The peak in inflation is now in the rearview mirror.
We hope he's right. The worst is behind us, Keith.
Well, I'll translate that for you. The Treasurer is telling Australians who've never had it so good. Let's pretend he's not running an economy, he's running a pizza shop. And every few months you get a pizza, but the pizza's getting smaller, the prices are going up. But he tells you you've never had so much because he's cutting the slices into smaller and smaller pieces. That's why GDP per capita matters. And we've had 6 quarters of negative GDP per capita. And that matters more than just an artificial number that economists talk about. It's directly correlated with life expectancy, with education and with happiness. So Australians haven't had it this bad in a long time. They know it, and they see through the Treasurer's spin.
Yeah, you're spot on. The per capita recession continues. Now, there's another story I really want to get your response on. It's a story that the 9 newspapers and Channel 9 have been running strongly, and I want to get your views as a veteran because it relates to the death of 4 Army airmen in a Taipan chopper crash off Queensland last year. An inquiry has heard from a former test pilot who warned that the new Army navigation aids on their helmets were not safe. Have a look.
I knew with certainty this accident was going to happen.
Major Ian Wilson risked his military career to warn of the lethal threat posed by a high-tech helmet used by pilots, only to have his worst fears realised in July last year when an Army Taipan helicopter smashed into the sea, killing 4 airmen.
It was not airworthy for use in that full operating environment.
This video, obtained by 9 News and taken just minutes before the military disaster, shows the poor weather at the time. The ill-fated Taipan had been turning in close formation with 3 other choppers off Hamilton Island, at low altitude, in low light and with no visible horizon. Precisely the conditions Major Wilson warned made reliance on the Top Owl helmet extremely dangerous.
It implied a very high risk of death.
Yeah, so worrying, Keith. 4 lives lost and warnings there apparently ignored by Defence. What needs to happen from here?
Well, the first thing that needs to happen is that inquiry needs to be allowed to continue its work, to test the evidence and then to give a full and frank report. Then government should read it properly and recognise that Defence has this tension built within it. It has a very strict hierarchy where if you disobey a lawful order, you can get thrown in jail. But when it comes to safety, if someone knows something that is important, it should be listened to and it should be actioned. So I hope that that's interrogated in this inquiry, and I hope that Defence listens at the end of it. Because, Chris, 4 lives were lost, but there could have been many more. That helicopter had just dropped off 16 commandos as well. We could have had 20 lives lost. So this should be taken very seriously.
It should indeed. Thanks so much for joining us, Keith. I appreciate it. Keith Wallahan, there, Liberal MP, joining us from Melbourne.